Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. I am Marty. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. And I'm joined by these fine gentlemen. Directly south of my heaven is Kellen. What's up, man?
Nothing much. How's it going?
Good.
All right.
How's you?
Good to see you. I'm doing okay.
Good.
Back to Album Club. Happy to be here. Good to see everyone.
Hell yeah.
Let's jump into, I guess, what we have been spinning. Okay, so this came in. I'll start with the new stuff. This came in. This is a full length. I've been waiting on the debut full length from this band. Medieval Prophecy continues to have a stellar year. I've got another one. The new Stan Garrigel is on its way as well. But this is the newest release from Collier d'Ombre, Autumnal Fortress. But been digging this one. Young band. I caught their, I think this is a 2023 EP that I really enjoyed. So a couple years ago, and I've been waiting for this band to finally put out a full length, and we got a brand new full length here in 2025. So been enjoying this. We'll see where that ends towards the end of the year, but excited to finally get that one going. And this week has been a lot of sort of fast death metal. I heard someone recently called it speed thrills, kind of death metal. So that's what I've been listening to. We'll kind of start going from the more recent and then back in history. So this is a small band. It kind of went under the radar back in 2021, I want to say. But a project called Cambion, Conflagrate the Celestial Refugium on Lava Dome Records. So consistently gonna grab my interest there. But another one in that vein, going back, I think this is 2000, from Brazil, Abhorrence, Evoking the Abomination. If anyone who's into the sort of rebellion Christian thing in that world. And man, I'm going to blame this one on Jim. So back when you were doing the death metal March Madness thing, I did a little bit of chair flipping and was kind of pissed off because Altars of Madness did not make it in there. And then I don't know if Alan I should blame for both of these, but I'm pretty sure he took Symphonies and Altars off. So fail on the professor. But I kind of protested because in my mind, Altars has always been the quintessential Morbid Angel record. And I brought up that I was kind of pissed off that Blessed of the Sick went further than Altars. And I brought up, and Jim put me in my place. He's like, no, don't get so pissed off about this. So
I'm still with Team Kellen here. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, so I pulled this back off the shelf. I'm going to spend a whole lot more time. I still think this is an absolutely classic record. But as to whether it can unseat Altars is yet to be determined. But man, I think this is the first Morbid Angel record I heard. And I, for some reason, I kind of, in my mind, it got shelved in its place and is the number 2 that you need to listen to. Altars is always better. So
they started to get a little arty. You know, they kind of evolved out of the old school and they're starting to get a little bit more
100%. And to be perfectly honest, in some ways, this may be kind of in terms of what Morbid Angel, I think, always wanted to be in terms of Trey's guitar work. It makes sense here, right? It's just, for me, Altars is like, I'm going to get sidetracked. We need to move on here. But anyway,
you still flipping tables. Everybody.
Yeah, I'm still flipping tables. But I'm dedicating myself to our wise Jim. And just like I have pushed him that Symphonies, this is a superior Carcass record. Hopefully he can sort of give me a little bit of more inspiration to go back and revisit to see if Blessed is potentially the best Morbid Angel record. But nonetheless, then that's what I've been spinning. I'll pass it on here.
Right on. Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Good. I don't think it's the best. I just think it's worthy of attention and love. I do think Altars is my favorite too. I heard Chapel of Ghouls off the fucking Grind Crusher compilation, and that my brother bought, and that was the end of the world for me. And that was like the first CD. I bought several CDs after that, but hearing that, but Altars and Madness was the first thing I got after hearing Grind Crusher comp. But so moving on to the Discord. Thanks, guys. They got me turned on to this band. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Rob or whatever.
Rob Cremis.
That's a good album.
Yeah, it's really killer. I love this. And funny little note, I know Marty already knows this, but Prophecy has a distribution center for people that order from America, and it's in, swear to God, Traverse City.
It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know where it's at.
Of all people, of all places, it's in Traverse
City, hire me
where Marty lives, But yeah, it's so funny, like getting this record in. It said Traverse City on the outside of the box. I was like, "Yep, that's got to be the Prophecy one."
Yeah,
pretty excited. And hails to Kellen for turning the span on me. I got my own copy of Dark Quarter in, and I burned the ears of my family this weekend listening to this. I was like, you will listen to these. The Italian vibrato, yes. But awesome. And my sister-in-law is full-blood Sicilian, so I don't know that she enjoyed it, but it made her like sit through it. Let's see, and always a ripper, pun intended. He had to play this one again, and it was funny because my brother was over and hadn't heard it in a long time, and he was about to leave, but then he just like couldn't leave. Or like listen to corner. He's like, "Oh man," he was being dragged out the door, but I was happy to slow his departure with awesome technical thrash. And just some other revisits, a little bit of Agalog here. What the fuck is this first album called again?
Oh, Pale Folklore.
Pale Folklore. Yeah.
Pale Folklore. Yeah. Anyway,
10 out of 10.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. See, I'm old. Can't remember shit. Oh, there goes the algorithm or the whatever. But, I should have waited till further in, but yeah, that's what I've been spinning. So super good. And yeah, I'm definitely in a black metal place. I've got some more stuff coming. Also, the Discord crew has helped me discover that. So yeah, looking forward to showing those as the weeks peel on by, as they come in, as they arrive.
Yeah. Shout out to the Discord server. Go, everybody, check it out. If you're not over there, it's an awesome community. Busy all day talking about metal and stuff. So stop on by, join us in the discussion for sure. Beyond the Wednesday and Friday streams. So what were you gonna say?
You'll learn something just like
I do. Yeah. All right, Logan, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Busy mail day for a bunch of us here. I shouldn't be ordering as much as I have been, but when you're in the Discord server on these streams, recommendations, and you just find awesome new music. And here's another success story from the album club. Look, got my first Gamma Ray album, Land of the Free. Yeah. This is the 25th year anniversary edition.
The circle is now complete.
Yes. It was a trap from the beginning. I should have known. Should never have picked it. Still got the old album cover on the back. So actually, I'm enjoying this edition of it. But yeah, I think I like this one better than the Somewhere Out in Space. It's just, you can't beat Rebellion in Dreamland as the opener, and then like deep cuts towards the end of it, like Farewell. Now that's a killer ballad, in my opinion. Got Hansi Kirsch from Blind Guardian. Abyss of the Void is a ripper at the end. And then I like the closer, Afterlife, a lot as well. So
what's on the second disc of that? What's on the expanded?
Let's see. Heavy Metal Mania, As Time Goes By. I mean, all of this stuff I have no idea, like The Silence 95, Dream Healer, Tribute to the Past, Heaven Can Wait.
Oh, it's just some of the singles.
I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, it says unreleased instrumentals and live studio recordings. So
Cool.
will I play it? Yeah. Probably not. But I appreciate having it. And then a new 2025 album that I've been enjoying in the sludge and doom variety. This is In the Company of Serpents with A Crack in Everything. This has like that borderline neurosis and just Americana kind of style to the sludge. It's still very riff heavy, but at the same time, there's a bit of just American melancholy to it. Like, this is one of those albums you put on and it kind of feels like a brisk fall day with like the leaves falling. And that's one of my favorite images to get from this style of music. So yeah, this was an easy pickup for me from 2025, In the Company of Serpents. And then maybe a little foreshadowing here, but my favorite song on this album is the closing track, Beyond the North Waves. That might be relevant at the end of the week. But yeah, I like this Immortal album. Put it on today. Great riffs to me, great songs, One by One, Tyrants, In My Kingdom Cold, and then, as I said, Beyond the North Waves. So yeah, Sons of Northern Darkness. And then a bunch of summoning, or a couple summoning. I'm not the biggest summoning fan, so this is actually going to be the first time diving into Stronghold, but Minas Morgul is always a must, and this is actually my favorite that I've heard from them.
EP.
Nightshade Forest. Yeah, something about only 30 minutes makes it a bit more digestible, you know? So.
Right on. All right. Well, for me, yeah, black metal's been happening a lot around here. First up, I bought this a long time ago and finally started circling back around to it. This is Azure. I don't know how to say that word. Moonlight Legend. This is the band's debut album. Came out on 1998 on Solstitium Records, which is, I got the promo of this ages ago, gave it away stupidly, and then ended up buying the reissue, which came out on Vigor Deconstruct. So basically, this is a two-piece from Sweden. Very much in the melodic death metal sphere, but a little bit of a black metal twinge to it as well. God, such a, I don't know, this cover is so, it's okay, I guess. I don't know. Got the colored pencil vibe going on here, but it's fine. Yeah, I don't know why I ended up buying this record, to be honest. I remember I used to have the promo of it and I wrote it off kind of quickly. And then I think I heard a clip of this when the reissue came out and I'm like, wow, that's better than I remembered it. So I ended up buying it. It was available on Bandcamp. So yeah, good record. Pretty dated. It's very dated, a little raw in the production, but it's for the time in the area that it's in, it's very much, a pretty cool artifact to have. Finally got around to getting the new Skagos album. It's called Chariot Sun Blazing. This is the band's latest, and yeah, it's been a long time since this band's been around, and they kind of just dropped this out of nowhere. And you want Cascadian black metal, these guys are kind of the forefathers of it. And the thing that was pretty interesting right away, there's like a horn ensemble on here, a lot of horn arrangements, and
horn ensemble.
Oh man. Nice. Well,
Had to do it.
It's a very warm, organic sounding album, and the horns actually give it a very unique vibe. Very well composed, very interesting. At times it feels like the black metal's a little bit in the background, which it's an interesting, unique album. It's good. Awesome vocals on it and nice clean design. Very cool. Check out Chariot Sun Blazing by Skagos. Merg Straven, another Swedish band. They're kind of in the more if Gorgoroth had a little bit more going on, a little bit better production, I think Merg is kind of in that old school spirit a bit. It's really good, solid black metal. I think their debut is probably my favorite, but as they've gone on, they've matured a bit, and I think this is their third album. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but Really do enjoy this band, Two Piece on Nordvis. And this is my kids' record. We sat down here, listened to this the other night, and played some video games. But the newest Winter Sun with Time 2. There's like a Japanese thing going on this a lot. Some instrumentals on here, it feels almost like Japanese cinema style music, soundtracky in a way. But the first song on here, The Way of the Fire, holy crap, what a ripping song. Great, fierce, black metalish, but virtuosic. The guitar work is absolutely amazing. As the album goes on, it's okay. It's a pretty good record. It feels very power metal. There's a lot of power metal-esque vibes on here, but Yari's voice is, of course, kind of at times he's a little Eson, at times he's a little Devin Townsend. But it all works here. I like Winter Sun. This is a good record. The more I've heard it, the more I've liked it. But yeah, if you're going to check this album out, check out at least the song The Way of the Fire. That song rips. Such a good song. But tonight we're here to discuss the fourth full-length album by Austria's Summoning. It is called Stronghold. Came out in 1999 on Napalm Records. And a little information for those of you unfamiliar, Summoning is an Austrian atmospheric black metal band based in Vienna. Since their formation in 1993, they have released 8 full-length albums and 2 EPs via Napalm Records. Their lyrics make extensive use of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth writings and mythology. Since 95, their lineup has a consistent lineup of Richard Lederer as Protector and Michael Greger as Selenius. The band even played live. The band never played live performances and has consistently maintained that they have no interest in ever doing so. Their latest album, With Doom We Come, was released on the 5th of January, 2018. So yeah, it's been a long time since we've heard anything from Summoning. But we're here to talk about Stronghold, and our first impression, since you're at the bottom of the stack over here, Logan, what did you think of this first impression?
All right. So first off, just about Summoning, the band in general. I mean, I think they deserve a lot of praise for being one of the most unique bands out there that I can think of. I mean, I can't think of anyone else who's had this approach to black metal that kind of stayed untouched for as long as they had. I mean, of course, now there are like copycat bands like Cal and Brood and the such who are kind of recreating the sound, but it's pretty impressive to create such a immersive style of music that really is just like traveling and marching music for hobbits and orcs. It's pretty cool to have that as like the backdrop for this. And with that being said, I always wish I could get a little bit more into them than I do. It's always a little bit tough to fully land where Summoning want me to be. Like Minas Morgul, for example, just kind of often goes in one ear out the other. Like I always enjoy it, but it doesn't stick with me as much as I would want to. I mean, I hear people praise songs like The Passing of the Grey Company and Through the Forest of Dol Guldur a whole bunch, and yeah, they're good. It's enjoyable, but going into this, I was kind of expecting similar to Minas Morgul, and on my first spin, I was immediately surprised. It actually kind of hooked me immediately. The guitar feels a lot more prevalent. Like on that opening song, for example, the path that you lost or something like that. I'll look it up when we get later on. But the guitar is like in a lead position, like kind of hooking you for the duration of the song. And it feels like it has a more consistent structure that you can easily follow. And the choruses themselves seem a bit more pronounced too, like on a lot of these tracks. And just overall, I had a lot easier time with the song length. Most of these are like 6-minute to 7-minute long songs. Other Summoning albums that I'm familiar with, it's like 10 to 11. Looking at you, Old Morning's Dawn, which I enjoy, but once again, it's a tough sell sometimes. So I was impressed that I was initially kind of hooked with it and enjoying it, and already like picking out songs. This to me sounds like a different side of the Summoning style, like a bit more guitar forward, a bit more conscious of the songwriting styles, and maybe a bit more balance vocally too. So I did enjoy it on my first spin.
Right on. Kellen,
Yeah, I'm a bit on the same page here with Logan. Summoning is a band that, for some reason, when I first came around to them, I had a difficult time just completely sort of embracing. I don't know if it was because, like, the earlier on, I just was not on board with the sort of full-on sort of Tolkien theme, or because I really went in looking for a black metal listen, and at the same time I was kind of discovering Summoning, I also was kind of getting into Macabre Omen, and that band for me was clearly much more of like a black metal stuff that I was interested in. So for kind of an epic style, I kind of ventured over there and put Summoning to the side. A lot of people absolutely love this band, but I kind of wrote them off the longest time as just not being my thing. Will agree with Logan here though. Like, I don't know, and it kind of will get into your question tonight. This was an enjoyable listen for me this week. I still don't know where they land in terms of an actual sort of black metal project, in terms of the listening experience. But I really did enjoy this, and we'll kind of get into the more details with the songwriting elements later on. But good impression first off.
Jim.
Well, over the last, I guess, nearly decade and a half now, right, Marty? You and I have been friends.
Yep.
You've introduced me to many, many bands, and Summoning is absolutely one of my favorite things you ever introduced me to. I'd never heard them or of them until we were hanging out, and Marty's like, "Oh, dude, check this out." And it wasn't what I expected, for Marty to put on. It was like, it was Summoning, drum machine, all synths and everything, kind of a buzzing guitar in the foreground, black metal vocals. But for whatever reason, like, I took to it immediately. I loved it. It really, grabbed me by the hooks. I am a huge fan of like Tolkien books. I'm that nerd that read them all when I was young and stuff, and love the Peter Jackson movies and stuff. Not the latter era Hobbit ones in the 2000s. Those were terrible, but the ones that followed the books.
I was still a sucker. They weren't great, but I was still a sucker for the Hobbit movies. I mean,
yeah, I don't know what happened there. I mean, I love the Mummy, but for like the ride at Universal, but not the movie. But like watching those Hobbit movies was like watching the Mummy, like, but with like updated effects or something. I was like, I don't get it. Anyway, but no, man, I to the point where I was like, trying to find old Summoning on vinyl, which, at the time, if you guys remember, like, it was impossible unless you wanted to pay an arm and a leg. I didn't have the money. And so I ended up buying them all on CD, everything. Definitely have been catching their new ones that, when they've been released since. But yeah, and I think they did come out with a box set, but like sold out before I could get to it or something. But I would definitely get it these days. But no, I love it. I definitely feel pulled into Middle Earth when I listen to it. It's I do as well when I'm listening to Blind Guardian as well, Nightfall, Middle Earth and stuff like that. And that's really more of a concrete kind of an experience. There's something like I would say like that is like a, I am, standing, like amongst a chorus of like people with my swords held high when I'm listening to Blind Guardian. But when I'm listening to when I'm listening to Summoning, it's like I'm sitting around a fire with the fellowship, you know what I mean? And we're all like, got our tobacco pipes out and we're, telling old tales from the Silmarillion, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of
Sure it's tobacco. Yeah.
Hey man, it is, man. Yeah, it's more of an emotional experience for me, Summoning, where like a power metal type take on a Tolkien like Blind Guardian is like a more visceral kind of an experience, and I enjoy and appreciate both. But for me, like ultimately, like summoning, like me, it just gets at my core a little more. Like I connect with like the whole emotion. I feel like I'm like drawn into this realm in a really specific way. Whereas if I want to, like, you know, run down the hill with an axe in hand, ready to hack up some orcs, then it's Blind Guardian time. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But it's great to have both. You know, that's what's great about this metal world we live in. So.
Oh yeah. Well, for me, first impressions on this one. I mean, summoning is always one. I think Minas Morgul was the first one I heard, and that album, it's a classic for sure. I think by the time we get to album 4 here on Stronghold, they took Minas Morgul has a very dungeon synth tone. It has a chintziness to it, but still the way the songwriting hits, it's still very addictive. Atmospheric and just very interesting. They kind of did something, you know. Selenius was part of Abigor, and Protector has done other projects as well. And to be, you know, coming up in the mid 90s when, you know, Norwegian black metal and this whole second wave was hitting and very dark and evil, they kind of hit it at a different approach. They used the staples of that genre and did something different and unique with it. By the time we get to Stronghold here, those synth lines have gotten more, they've sounded a lot more rich, and their ear for composing and orchestration and layering, it's just, this is a very world building band for me. Always has been. Yeah. Middle Earth, of course. They're the perfect soundtrack to the books and the movies. If you could take out whatever score they put in there and put in some of this stuff, it would fit perfectly. It just completely mirrors that darkness. But it's also one of those things where, yeah, it puts me in another mental space as well. And this is a band that has a very mad scientist, couple guys toiling over a drum machine. If you've ever had to sit down and program an old school drum machine, it's a pain in the ass. It's a labor of necessity and love. And I hear this stuff, and they don't hide the fact that they have a drum machine. And I just like the fact that they can combine martial industrial, dungeon synth, black metal, and like these fantasy soundtrack elements all together. And it's pretty emotional, moving music, I think. And yeah, and this album, on their 4th album, they're really kind of nailing it. It's really coming together for them really well. And that leads us to my question for this episode. Summoning evolved and perfected their sound. It often struck me just how minimal the metal side of their sound feels in the grand scope of their compositions as they've progressed. Yet it perfectly adds the darkness and weight. But really, if the metal wasn't there, would you miss it? Is it even necessary to the symphonic / orchestral nature of the band's style? Cullen.
I mean, yeah, it's a good question, because throughout this week, I really didn't think specifically on this record just how metal the overall listening experience was. And I totally get what you're saying in terms of there's parts of this that make sense in terms of pulling from a black metal world. Like, I specifically, you know, to your point, the voicing of the guitars, if they weren't so well layered, I think they would sound a little bit more grating.
Because it's kind of a cult. Some of the guitar sounds very cult.
What's super cool about this is they navigate, like, they understand some aspect of the whole sort of lo-fi, you know, drum machine black metal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, because they're so specifically delving into a world of fantasy and trying to conjure up these sort of epic narrative, you know, storytelling in terms of song composition, they don't present as like dark, minimalist bedroom black metal. This is so well composed and sort of multifaceted in terms of the voicing and the guitar stuff. So I think the overall experience, and I see where it's, you know, coming, you know, from a black metal sound and like key characteristics, but overall for me, this very much at times felt much more almost like an ambient listen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some key moments in terms of like dynamic swings that they make, but a few of the, like, I would say there's like 3 or 4 songs here where I just kind of fell into a mood overall.
Yep.
And that's not always something that you associate with the metal listen. Which to your point though, there's enough trappings here that would make it sound, I think, familiar to black metal fans. And in my mind, like, there was a clear sort of like, hey, there's this interesting project from some of the guys in Abigor. Like, that was sort of the line that for me I took when I first went towards this band. So people coming from that background, I think, had a bit of an expectation, and that helped to sort of buoy this band as having some elements of, you know, cult black metal going on. But for me, very much, I think fans of this, I can also see, like, if you're into dungeon synth or you're into ambient music or other stuff, you could also venture into a band like Summoning. In terms of specifically here in this experience. To your point, Minas Morgul had this very lo-fi, kind of cheesy,
chintzy sound,
yeah.
but it was still cool. You know,
it's a little bit kitsch, right? But like at the same time, that lo-fi kind of low budget feel made it feel like a black metal listen. So I very much over this past week kind of in my mind ventured into much more of like an ambient listen, symphonically at least, that I did a black metal one. So I think the confusion makes sense given your question.
Yeah. Jim, what do you think?
Very good question. You know, I think, you know, for me, kind of close to what Kellen was saying, you know, because I'd heard another band that was sort of quasi black metal first, that it readied me for it. And in 2009, Luster from Sweden, that kind of black metal ambient project, came out with Night Spirit, and I think I heard it about a year later. I think I heard it in 2010, but I love that from the get go. And if you've heard that, I mean, it's like, you know, barely black metal. It's drum machine, you know, definitely a black metal vocal, but the guitars are it's way more atmospheric and ambient, and the guitars and actually what I think, in my opinion, their best album, which is Wonder, which came out in 2013. That album sounds, in fact, very summer like. It has a very kind of an uplifting feel to it, which is not black metal at all, but it still, to me, is like an offshoot of it. And so I would say that you know, I think I would like Summoning even if the metal wasn't there, because like, especially on like the older, like the pre-Stronghold albums, like the guitar is real super tinny and almost just like almost like a sound effect in a lot of cases. You know, I mean, it's tremolo, but it isn't like, it's not really super easy to define. It's real buzzsaw kind of sounding, but not like, you know, entombed buzzsaw. More like, you know, like more like you know, like the buzzsaws against a metal pipe. You know, like,
yeah,
you know, like that. Yeah. And so, you know, for me, like I think I would still be into it. It just the world that they create with such like rudimentary instrumentation, you know, like to Marty's point, like old school drum machines, old school synthesizers. You know, they weren't going for like you know, like true black metal. They weren't using like modern equipment, but they still managed to, like, you know, pull out like a mysticism, you know, from that you know, cheap hardware, if you will, or software. But so yeah, you know, this is it's probably the only time you're ever going to hear me say this on this show. You know,
as soon as I wrote the question, I had you in mind, because I'm like, what would you do if you could just turn off the metal on this? You know,
yeah,
how would Jim take it?
This is literally the only band I can think of where I would tolerate that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and you know, and still, you know, like, you know, and still like it. You know, maybe not as much, but almost as much. You know, so they just got something here. And yeah, you know, to Logan's point earlier, like they've been copied and stuff, you know, and like an album that came out this year, Theoden's Reign, you know, is basically summoning worship, and I loved it. I bought it. You know? I mean,
I've been meaning to check that out. I keep forgetting to do so.
Yeah. It's not as good as Summoning. It is good though.
Most bands that are in this style are not as good as Summoning. That's just
I mean, who is, right?
Yeah.
You know, as much as awesome as Kaladin Brood was, it still wasn't Summoning. It was good.
It was very close though. That was their Summoning covers on the vinyl are pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It is great stuff. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, if I had to make a choice, I'm gonna be listening to something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, I think that these guys really are unique in the metal pantheon, and you know, kind of push the boundaries of what black metal is or could be. And at the end of the day, I don't think they really care. Maybe part of that is due to Selenius's, you know, his stint in Abigor. Like, he's got that full black metal like band to, like, you know, pour himself into, so he can do whatever he wants in summoning, and you know, it's still going to be cool, you know, no matter how much metal he does or does not input into it. But I will say, before I give up my spot on the floor right now, the reason why I like Stronghold so much, it's my favorite summoning record, is because the metal is so ever present. Like the riffs are very strong on this record. It is actual riffs. It's not just like I talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. These are real riffs, you know what I mean, with definable, like, you know, low end and stuff like that. But I'd still love them anyway if it wasn't there.
Right on. Logan, what are your thoughts on this one?
So, first, they do have a release that is, you know, no metal. It's just synth driven. I guess it's not really too much of a release. It's like Lost Tales, 2 songs.
One is all just samples.
Minutes.
One of the songs is just samples on it. Yeah,
it's all like Gandalf, good morning, over and over again. It's a great track. But yeah, no, I enjoy this, and it is it's still an immersive, like, feels like you're in the Lord of the Rings experience. But the one thing that I like about it is it's not even 20 minutes. It's literally you're in and you're out, and it's done. So I guess I'll be the contrarian here and say that no, I want my metal elements in summoning. I think for me to enjoy it. Obviously, the band can do whatever they want, and I feel like they should go out and experiment in whatever way they wanted to. And if they had like an over switch up, it would still be rewarding music for those. I would just have to wrap my head around it differently, I think, than here. Because there's enough black metal here that I'm able to sink my teeth into. And maybe that is the issue why I'm not clicking with Minas Morgul as much, is because it does have that more ambient feel, and I'm like listening to it one moment, and then the next moment I have no idea what song we're in. Or
it's a very long album, and a lot of the songs are very similar.
It blends in, and this one does not blend in. I can tell which song is which. There are riffs here. The vocal delivery is even a bit more sinister at times from Selenius when he pops in. Like, I will talk about that later, but that's one of the highlights. Is his vocals
acidic?
Yeah, very
so good.
It's so good. How it sits in the production is very venomous, and so yeah, my favorite parts of this album are the metal parts, and so maybe since, you know, spoiler, I did like this album more than Minas Morgul, my favorite parts of the summoning sound are the black metal parts, and I feel like you can trace that they are still black metal here. Like, I don't feel like they ever lost being black metal, and it just sounds like to me that it took that, you know, ambient side that was already popping up because of Burzum, and we're just like, let's keep adding more and more, and, you know, but for the goal of, you know, create world building, and really is a unique product. But I think part of what makes it unique is that the black metal elements are in there, and that they are, to me, a vital part. Like the black metal vocals, that's important. I would come to a summoning album kind of expecting that. That being said, I'm also not the biggest fan of dungeon synth. I have not really dove headfirst into the dungeon synth side of things. And if I did enjoy a Mortis album here or a Hold Dweller album there, maybe I'd feel different. But, you know, right now I want my metal and summoning. So,
right on. Yeah, for me, I guess I was thinking of the question today as I was listening to this on headphones, and kind of realizing that the formula on this album, and, you know, moving forward, yeah, the riffs are there, like Jim said. They never really lost sight of their black metal roots, and they maintain it. The guitar sound is really cult sounding, but it fits in perfectly in with the layers. but a lot of the songs, it's those triumphant synth lines that kind of carry the harmonies of the song. So I was kind of envisioning as I was listening to this, if you just had a switch to turn the metal off, how would it impact it? Yeah, there would be a difference, but there's so much going on there with all of the layering and that ever-present plodding patient drum machine. It I don't think I'd miss it. But if you took the metal away and changed the vocals as well, then I would have a problem, because the vocals here are absolute necessity to summoning as far as I'm concerned. You got Protector style, which is very much, he sounds like a weathered ranger that has seen a lot of battle in his life. Maybe he sings in kind of a black metal style, but more of a narration. He feels more like a storyteller, where Selenius sounds like, the voice of Mordor. He sounds like pure evil, especially on the Godly track, A Distant Flame Before the Sun. Holy shit. It's like someone made him gargle acid and lit it on fire in his throat. It's so freaking sinister and awesome. He's got a great voice anyway, but man, this Friday, we're having Logan on. We're going to be talking about our favorite closing songs to an album. This is on there 100% without even a thought. This is just, in that case, that song, it needed the metal a bit, because it adds a bit of that urgency, and it feels like you're in the midst of a battle, and it adds to it. But again, if it wasn't there, there's so much other things going on. There might be, if it might feel a little thinner, but I think it would be fine. This album would still be very serviceable and enjoyable without the metal. And I like electronic music. I've got a small, respectful dungeon synth collection, and I like industrial music. I like some Marshall industrial stuff. I just think it's really cool how they're almost tricking metalheads a bit, because they're under the guise of a black metal band, but there is so much other stuff coming at you on here. It's almost like a bait and switch thing. Like, oh, sorry guys, we got you into something else inadvertently here, which, clever. But yeah. Thanks for humoring me on that question. It felt a little rushed, but I think we got
great question, Marty. Great question. You always congratulate us on our question, and I feel like we're just leaving you out to dry. So well done. Well done.
Yes.
I felt the question was a little lame when I wrote it, so I'm just saying. Anyway, let's discuss the musicality and composition of Stronghold. Jim, we'll start with you this time.
Cool. Yeah, I think somebody absolutely stepped it up a notch on this record. I do really love Dol Guldur right before this. And I consider them kind of starting with Minus Morgul. I know they got Lugburst, but that was really not really what summoning would become.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah, it's just
kind of a forgettable album. They had to do this, I think.
Yeah, so for me, it starts with Minus Morgul, which I think that's a great record, but for me, it's started to come together really strong on Dol Guldur, and then this comes along and it hits on every note, like putting the guitars, more up front, like real wrist to kind of almost have like a kind of percussive attack going along with the the artificial drums, like give it like more weight, and some welcome bottom end, not that I need that in black metal or seek it out, but being someone that loves the bass guitar, even hearing more low end from a guitar specifically, was welcome for me, and I think it just like made their stuff even more like punchy. So from a composition standpoint, I think they really raised the bar. I think the layering is denser here overall than all the previous albums, and that for me, that deeper layering pulls me further into that fantastical place that I want to go to when I'm listening to summoning. So with them adding all of that together, it drags my mind back into that world. I can close my eyes, I can find myself there. And and there's other little things they did that were really cool, like the legend sample on the final track. Like I influenced mankind through dreams. I mean, I love that movie, man. I mean, I think that's one of the coolest depictions of Satan ever. I mean,
yeah. Was it Adam what's his name? Adam Curry?
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love that one. And so I think it's super cool that they put that in there. And just like little things like that really appeal to me, and I think it just elevated the album. And one thing that I think they really kind of perfected here. Well, they started to perfect it, and of course they continued on. Is there's I feel like there's this circular movement in summonings, like riffing style and composition, where it kind of comes around in circles, and you can hear really a lot on The Shadow Lies Frozen on the Hills. There's this kind of circular motion of the keys and the guitars, where it kind of goes away and it comes back, and you're just kind of waiting for it to come around. It's not a very good musical technical term, but that's just a feeling I get when I hear them. Like I'm moving around in this
windswept. Can we say windswept?
Yeah. Well, it's just like like the melody lines of the riffs and the synths. It's like they come back, they go and they come around. They go.
That's a very proggy part in that song.
Yeah. But when it's going like that and it keeps going and it's repetitive, it pulls you further into that magical world. They know how to do it in such a way where you're not really thinking about like the difficulty or like the scale or whatever, you're trying to figure out like where are they doing this on the fretboard. For me, it's just the effect of it. It just draws me further into the realm that they're trying to create. And so, all of those elements, that kind of circular aspect of it, the focus on actual riffs being implemented, an even better choice of sampling on this that I think, really appealed to me. There's a sample from Braveheart too in the last song as well. Like Now You Know the Price of Freedom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just super cool stuff. I mean, there's like two of my favorite movies and they're pulling samples from. I'm like, this is awesome, man. I love these guys already. But so yeah, and to your point, Marty, the vocal interplay between Protector and Selenius, it's kind of perfect. It really sounds like one guy, like sometimes he's screaming, one time he's sort of chant singing. It's kind of both. But all of these elements combine to make Summoning what they are, and up until this point, and for me, really historically, it's still my favorite. But I definitely think, almost from an objective standpoint, that they really raised themselves onto a new level for this record. So.
Right on. I started out of whack. Jim was the first, right? Okay, here we go. Hey, Colin.
Yeah.
I try to get experimental with the rotation, and I'm like, oh crap.
So I totally I had the exact same thing written in my notes in terms of like a circular songwriting style. The way that they're choosing for the majority of this listen, the way that they are programming the drums, if that is sort of the base or the foundation to the architecture here, that predominantly just sort of goes back and forth and circles throughout.
Yeah.
So what's probably most interesting, there are a few parts where they deviate from that formula, but where I think this record succeeds though is in between each sort of orbit. How, to your point, the complexity of the layering going on. We've kind of talked in the previous question about how they kind of come from a black metal, sort of, there's something grating about sort of the guitar tone here. I come away though, like epic heavy metal for me, there's something about an overall, like the entirety of the sort of sound spectrum here is filled in. And this isn't necessarily a production notes comment, but it just makes me feel like there is nothing sort of missing in the sound. And that adds a degree of warmth without it necessarily being a characteristic of the guitar sound. So all the different synths that are going on, all the different guitar layering, at parts there are different vocals that are situated, all of that where you get like a drum sample that sounds, very, drum sampley. Like it's kind of,
it sounds like a drum machine. It doesn't sound like a drum program.
And like porous, that kind of like mechanical sort of clickety clackety sound is just absolutely sort of sitting underneath this incredibly sort of grand and warm kind of orchestration to it. And how like the song that, you know, we really get going here, the second track, Long Lost to Where No Pathway Goes. To your point, Marty, when the chorus kicks in and that synth line jumps in, like that for me sort of seals the deal in terms of developing narrative convention in terms of a song, right?
Yep.
If you are trying to articulate an epic story based on the kind of guitar layering and synth layering, that song, you know what, 7 minutes long, but you can tell they're giving you a glimpse into an epic world in terms of how they just build that sonically, right? In terms of the chord progression, sort of the major keys they choose. And I think that's a clear departure away from anything that is black metal that we commonly would easily associate with, where you have to start using phrasing like epic to talk about this band because it's a departure from everything people kind of know as dark, necro, cult, etc. There's a certain kind of warmth that goes along to the storytelling. And I think that's the next thing I want to drive home is throughout most of these songs, you know, even though they are on the longer side, you could say, and this entire listen eclipses an hour, the fact that you can kind of touch with base with each one of these and you realize they're trying to dip into a iconic fantasy author based on like the kind of the chord choices, right? How the songs sort of build and evolve. I think to their credit, that was something that was kind of unwritten at the time that this band came around. And they're sort of building that vocabulary into this world. So I think that's an amazing talent to possess. There is, I do think, we haven't really talked about for me, when Where Hope and Daylight Die comes around and we have the additional sort of female vocals that come through. I want to get her name right.
Man, I wanted to hate it, but I think it's so classy and culturally brave for this style of music. It's great.
It completely kind of catches me off guard. And I can understand people who are like, let's say, coming from Abigor being like, what the hell? But for me, it totally works within this concept. It didn't bother me at all. And I think it's actually a welcome addition to sort of break up at parts of this album for me that kind of start to become a little bit sort of, it kind of level off a little bit. So it's a nice sort of dynamic shift.
And in that song, I hate to cut in here, but
go ahead.
It's really interesting how that song starts off purely electronic. Then her voice comes in, and then the metal kind of accent, but towards the later part of the song, the metal actually is the crescendo of the song. The way they compose it boils up into kind of the crescendo. And I don't know, it's just, I think probably the most adventurous track on the album, most experimental track on the album. And, you know, it feels like a night at the opera with a real true darkness at the heart of it. I don't know. I really dig it.
It's a moment. It kind of catches your attention when you're listening.
Because you're right. It's so dissimilar from the rest of it, you know.
Right.
But in a way that's consistent with the rest of the album. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So to Jim's point, though, I feel the back end of this record is where I think the metal components feel strongest for.
Oh yeah.
So the one that I was waiting on, you can feel on track 6, The Riding Horse on the Deadly Ground, you can feel that song gathering momentum.
Yeah. And
I didn't know that they were going to give it to me, but finally, when we actually get sort of the velocity of the kick drumming and the programming stuff pushes through and you get like that double kick sort of push at the end, perfect payoff. They built that up for you, man. Please just don't let that go. And they seized the moment. I think that's a great way to implement sort of a metal sort of dynamic shift to an overwhelmingly like ambient listen. And I there's a point on even the following track, The Shadow Lies from Frozen on the Hills. I think there's the riffing on that feels far more traditional black metal at times for me. The back end of this record, I think the metal gets heavier in terms of a component that they use. So the one thing I would say though is it never feels like it completely opens up in terms of the songwriting. They're committed to this kind of circular aspect. So that always felt like the one limiting factor for me during the course of this listen is like the aperture can only open so much on this lens before it feels like the album loses its composure for me. So they need to kind of rein it back in at some level, which keeps it very much like an ambient listen. You sort of navigate a certain amount of dynamic sort of cadence, if you will. You don't extend beyond that. And I think that's probably my one sort of like hindrance that keeps it away from completely moving into a metal listen for me.
All right. Awesome breakdown for sure. Logan.
Yeah, well said points for sure. To try to follow that up, let me see. The direction of this album does feel
they're pretty good.
It's good hobbits and dwarves.
It's cool.
And shit. I like, Lord of the Rings.
I'll drink an IPA with that.
That's my page, guys. Follow me on Instagram. No, like this does feel like a different step for the classic summoning sound that I'm, of course, familiar with from Minas Morgul and Dol Guldur. Goddamn. And the way that they build the tracks, it still feels linear in that, like, journey aspect that Kellen so well described. But it feels like it's actually building in a more measurable way, Like the previous albums just feel indeed more of that ambient, like you're kind of just basking in the few layers that kind of more stay like this. But these songs, they ebb and flow. They rise, they fall, they rise again, And the guitar gets more of a front seat in the direction and movement of this album. And I absolutely enjoy that a lot. And I think that's why this album just ended up clicking with me right from the get-go. I mean, I agree that the more metal aspects are on the second half, but the first half is no slouch with what the guitar is doing. I mean, opening track, No Pathway, Long Lost to Where No Pathway Goes. Oh, that's not the opening.
Rune is like that.
Rune's the opening
somber,
one, but the first actual song, it has actual, like, just a guitar lead that so perfectly is the main draw of that song. And then you get the next track, and it's somewhat similar, though a little bit more of that traditional summoning style, but the guitar is still the main kind of piece. And then track 3, like some Snow White Marble Eyes, actually has like a chunky guitar riff that kind of is in the verses of it. So right there, I'm already a lot more into what the guitar is doing. And then, indeed, those 2 tracks you highlighted, Kellen, The Rotting Horse on Deadly Ground and The Shadow Lies Frozen on the Hills, they actually do build towards a metal ending. I mean, it's not blast beats, but it is like an actual fast-paced drum outro, and it has that intensity. Like, you did go on an epic kind of journey that is coming to a climactic end. So I appreciated that. I also really enjoyed the vocal dynamics here. I didn't realize that Selenius and Protector switch vocals every single album. Like I didn't notice it until Stronghold, but on every album they trade off songs with their vocals, and maybe it's a choice of production that why I noticed it on here. But immediately when The Rotting Horse on the Deadly Ground, for me that's my Selenius, is like what God Abigor song. He just sounds so vicious and different and like evil. Like he definitely embodies the dark forces of Mordor and stuff. And I guess Protector is the Ranger, as you said, Marty. But I just love that dynamic and how they like space it out through the tracks. Like Selenius pops up on,
and both of them are perfect. I don't care who's singing; they're both really good. I mean, it fits the mood of the song perfectly. They got broke up really nice.
Agreed. And for me, the Protector sound is his vocals are just what I more commonly associate with the band. So I don't know if Selenius intentionally sounded more like visceral on here. This is something I'm going to have to check. There are other albums to hear, but for whatever reason, his vocal performance especially stood out to me, and I was impressed with specifically the Rotting Horse, and then like some Snow White Marble Eyes, or the Glory Disappears was his other track that really kind of blew me away. A Distant Flame Before the Sun is no slouch either, but just
song is so good.
Just a nice addition and extra layer to the appreciation of this album. But speaking of layers, the synth and the keyboard elements do sound fully realized here, a lot more so than on Minas Morgul, and a bit more world building. Sometimes it is a bit much for me. I will be honest. Sometimes I'm like, okay, what are we doing? For example, like some Snow White Marble Eyes, track 4, there's this like buzzing sound that just won't go away. Is that a tremolo guitar? Did you guys hear that? I mean, yeah. Jim, basically you were talking about the person doing like soldering your plumbing or whatever. That's literally what it sounded like. The first time I heard.
There's a couple songs where there's like just a ripping tremolo riff and a couple simplistic, but still a lot of cool movement in it, you know.
And it might just be the headphones that I'm listening to it on and the Spotify that I'm jamming to, but it literally sounded like a weed eater, you know. Not the band. I wish the band.
Woo! Never far away. Never far away.
But just a buzzing that doesn't really contribute anything to the music, and it never really like came to anything. Like the more I focused on it, the more it just kind of bugged me, which is a bummer because I really like the riffing and the chorus of Snow White Marble Eyes. So I don't know. And then sometimes the drums do go a bit more of the they got the tambourine out, and we're doing the tambourine march and stuff, and that loses me a little bit at times. But that's me just nitpicking. That's me nitpicking, and that's probably my issue with more of the summoning sound than this album. Overall though, the feel and the atmosphere is perfect. It's an overall highlight. It feels more uplifting in the first half, then darker and more depressing in the second half. And then for some reason it closes on Rune coming back in the final moments of A Distant Flame Before the Sun, and you feel like it's kind of a hopeful ending, and you hear the Braveheart clip, which I thought it was. I forgot what you said it was. Now here's the price of freedom. He said, now here's the price of treason. And it's right before, Mel Gibson gets it. So it's still a depressing ending to the album. So I guess it kind of ends, it ends on a downer. But yeah, still thematically. And it makes me wonder, like, is there kind of some concept that is flowing through that I'm not aware of? It makes me want to dive more into Lord of the Rings, which is always a good thing. Always cool.
Yeah.
So.
Hard to follow up all this stuff, but I listened to this album, and to me, for the first time, it feels like if they weren't inspired by classical music, I would be shocked, because this, in a lot of ways, it feels like a modern classical album, not as technically advanced. I mean, you listen to some of that old classical stuff, and it's just, there's a lot of ripping going on. There's a lot, the layers are very, it's just very busy but beautiful, and I get that I don't really take any of this as busy, but it feels like modern classical composition on here, and it really finds summoning becoming masters of dynamics. They have no problem, much like classical music, going from a very quiet chunk of music to a very loud bombastic, like in the like Kellen mentioned, Long Lost to Where No Pathway Goes. It almost feels like the song starts off kind of quietly, and when that bombastic epic chorus hits in, it's like, you're soaring to this other world, or I don't know. It's amazing, and it kind of right away gives you a glimpse into what the album, which you're about to embark upon on the album. But as far as the composition and the songwriting on here, I find it very painstakingly plotted out. There's not a lot of jamming on here. Everything has its place and purpose. And I think it's kind of inspiring, the fact that, I could just see two guys laboring over a table. Yeah, I mean, I've heard on later albums, to get the right sound, they would record the guitars clean and then try to figure out which guitar sound to put on it. And just the way they painstakingly, like I said, mad scientists go into these albums, and then to hear the outcome to be so emotionally manipulative. I mean, they're constantly taking you up and down on this journey, and that to me is excellent composition and songwriting, and knowing what you want to accomplish and actually having the tools and the sounds and the musical capacity to create this. And like I said, this is a very orchestrated album. The synth, there are times where the synths sound a bit cheap, but it's part of their sound. But the synth sounds have gotten so much better for them on this album. It just feels very majestic and like you're at the orchestra, watching an awesome symphony with a modern metal interpretation to it included. It's just, 100%. Dig it. But let's talk about the production. Jim, since you're at the bottom there, we're going to try to go right straight up the line this time.
Production. It's like I said before, it's a denser sound than their previous albums, more layered. Definitely a step up overall in the production sound, but it's still summoning. It's still like, underground, quasi black metal. They didn't like polish it and, make it something acceptable for the masses. Still has that underground quality. I think it's still put together with old tech, and which makes it all the better for our cult ears. So it stays within the framework where it still feels like it's something that's come out of the depths of the underground. So kudos to them for not giving into a 200 track studio or whatever. I do think their later albums have gotten way more modern in sound, and they are utilizing more modern techniques. Though I still love with Doom and Come and all that kind of stuff, but this one for me hits the sweet spot, which is like it still has that dark undertone to it, but yet it was still a progression from what came before. It's just that kind of sweet spot in terms of like growth, where they haven't abandoned where they were coming from, but they've made it better, so there really isn't like much else I'll add to that. Because I think I kind of covered already. I've talked about how the layering is improved. The guitar is more up front. All of that I think comes into play here. I do like how I will say that. In addition to the percussion that's sort of ever present here on, the loud music of the sky, I like that there's like an actual drum beat there. It kind of makes that song even more powerful. It's kind of unexpected in sort of the context of the record. You're kind of looking for more of that medieval sort of percussion, kind of a feel back to that sort of circular kind of rhythm. It's the loud music of the sky I think has a little more energy for that reason. So the production there of the way they implement that I think is more akin to kind of like how they were before, but done in that more dense context that they were inhabiting on Stronghold. So a really cool kind of throwback to earlier summoning, but still moving forward overall. And but yeah, I think that's it for me on the production side. Well done. I wouldn't change a thing.
Right on. Logan.
Yeah, I mean, the production is definitely a big part of summoning sound, and I guess both Protector and Selenius are the producers and mixers and masterers, according to the archives. It's simultaneously kind of warm feeling and majestic, but yeah, I agree with Jim. It does not lose the black metal aesthetic. This is not a clean and crystal production. It feels medieval, and I honestly I admire it. You look around at 1999 at the landscape, and you get Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth kind of doing this big bombastic thing, and here we still have Summoning with actual symphonic elements, not really being a symphonic black metal band, and really still embracing that old school kind of necro style, kind of dirty and like just vicious production in the way the guitars sound and in the way that the vocals sound. But somehow the instrumentation itself kind of still sounds warm and uplifting. And that's one thing about their synths is they really they do sound like they're building you up a little bit. And it always makes me think, I don't know if there's any nerds from the 2000s around here who played a game called RuneScape, but it makes me think of the RuneScape theme music and stuff, which is I always associate with just this, uplifting nostalgia. So
there was a little bit of contempt in your voice when you said nerds.
I can't help it.
I could hear a little bit in there.
Nerds. No, it exists.
Nerds,
it exists.
Like summoning your nerd. Instead of bong jizzer, that's a different thing.
It's something I'm working on. It came out last week during the Power Metal episode too, and I'm sorry for all
judgmental down in New Orleans, everyone.
Yeah, my bad. We like our crowbars and our acid baths, and yeah, but I like it. This is good stuff. The atmosphere and the production I think fits perfectly with the Summoning vibe, and this is a part of their sound. This is I don't think I could hear Summoning without like this exact production, which it is a lot different on Doom They Come. Like that is a lot more modern sounding and like clean, and I heard that one once.
That may be why I didn't like it as much.
Yeah,
that's like the first Summoning album. It's like I don't know if I like this album.
There was something off, and I do think it was a little bit of the production.
I need to revisit it. I've only spun it like twice because I was kind of put off. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I guess to wrap up, like the mixing and stuff, I will highlight that the drum machine sounds pretty authentic at times, and like for example, where Hope in Daylight dies, the way that the toms and stuff pushes that song forward, it almost feels like an actual drum kit, and maybe the production kind of helps with that. And I do like the drum machine production on this, which is something that I always struggled with on previous Summoning albums. So that was an improvement.
It's very clicky on Minas Morgul.
It is
cheap and clicky. Yeah,
nerds. Sorry.
Yeah. Right, Kellen.
Yeah, so for me, it's like the sophistication of the composition of this record almost seems to eclipse everything that's happening in terms of like texture and tone with the production. Like it's so well composed, every single element onto its own. If you were to isolate it, I think it would sound much more sort of whatever coarse necro, low budget kind of going on. But because so many of these elements are well composed, simultaneously sort of scaffolding within, on top of one another, I think that almost pushes this record to a different kind of sound texturally. And the drum here, I kind of will disagree a little bit with Logan's comment. Like it always sounds like very much like a drum machine to me.
I agree with you, Kellen, on that. I see what Logan's saying. They're produced well, but it does sound. They don't hide the fact.
What I would say is like the how thorough the drum use is. Like often when you hear a drum machine, I don't think you're getting the full sort of scope. Like there are tom fills, that sort of circular nature of the drum work on this album feel to me like they are trying to diversify the sampling that probably would sort of exceed what most people would expect from a drum sort of machine sound. So there's a certain kind of diversity into the arrangement that I think almost eclipses what's actually happening in terms of like the point I'm trying to make is sort of the texture to this, which is something I always associate with, drums is it lacks that kind of like imperfection that human drum work always sort of seems to bring along. And Same thing with the guitar work and the synths, like where the actual synth sound, when that needs to be just a synth and electronic sense versus like a horn sample. I mean, all of those work together in a way that I think really elevates the production outside of just sounding like a bunch of different samples and rough guitars. Yeah, I think the other thing I want to point out is the sampling. It almost feels to me like here in my room, they dip into like a timpani drum. Like there are some very sort of deep percussive sort of strikes that happen on this record. To your point about like the symphonic element of this, that's a very different drum sound than you hear from like a kick drum or like a floor tom. And I think that it does a lot to sort of change the sense of scale for this. I just mean that they're choosing different kind of drum samples that I think exceed, traditional kind of drum sampling. So just another addition, I would say, about the production here. Placement. I actually think vocals sit appropriately within the mix.
I agree.
To your point, I think there's a narrative quality to this record in terms of how they sing or scream. And I never felt like they were concealing the arrangement that was happening around them. But I also felt like you were able to sort of tell a sort of the story, at least, or follow along in terms of how they wanted to present it. So I for a record like this, I don't know if there's much more you can ask in terms of production.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of layers, and they really kind of nail it. Yeah.
And to both Logan and Jim's point, it 100% sounds like a world that they're coming from and what they want to sample. It does not feel by any means that they are trying to discredit or alienate sort of the roots or potentially the fan base that would be attracted to this. And at the same time, it feels like they're building into this different world that's happening outside of just traditional black metal listen.
Really, I a lot of agreement here, and like what Jim said, he wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't change a thing either. And also to agree with Kellen, I think the complexity of the layers and what the music is doing is a bit of a distraction from the production, because if you were to listen to the guitar alone, I mean, it might be a tale of two different albums, but a synth tone right out of the box is going to sound good. It just is, because it was created that way. It's pure. It's a pure tone. Whereas guitar, I don't know how they recorded it on this. Did they mic an amp? Depending on where you put the mic, it's going to change the sound. Is it a shitty amp? Is it a great amp? I don't know. It would have been interesting to be a fly on the wall to see what sort of concoction they had here, but I think all the tones work really well together. And really, there's a lot of talk about the drum machine, both with us and in the chat. And I'm with Tyler. This to me sounds very much like an actual drum machine. They program drum parts. Well, nowadays you can get Drum Kit from Hell, Superior Drummer, Cult Drums. I mean, whatever. There's all these the software that is actually a recorded someone playing a drum, and you just manipulating the MIDI files to your needs. But here you can tell, after my first band Prosthesis, we couldn't find a drummer. We used an Alesis HR16B drum machine, the gray one, same one Godflesh used on Street Cleaner and others. It's a meticulous process. You have no idea. If you're scrolling through the measure and you miss the beat, you have to go all the way back around. You can't go back a step. That would be too simple. You have to go through the whole damn. It is a nightmare programming. I hated drum machines by the time of that it's done. But now, as I'm older, the nostalgia of it, I love it. And the way they're programming these drums, it's very indicative of simplistic patterns. It does what it's supposed to do in the right spots, but it's very much a simplistic plod throughout these tracks, allowing the symphonic elements to take the reins on these songs. But the way the super clean drum sound is, it allows room for all these instruments to sit on top of it. So they need to have the drum machine as part of their sound. I like, to Logan, what you said about the drums, that I think it sounds perfect. They produced it perfectly. They don't hide the fact that it's synthetic, but they have decent sounds on it. So it's a lot of things are happening here. And when I listen to it, there's nothing that takes me out of my journey in the sound field, from the mixing to the sounds to the choices. And it's funny, Kellen mentioned the horn sounds on there's a song towards the end where they're using that horn, and it's just so dungeon synth. It's just, I see why the dungeon synth people really look up to summoning, and people within that realm have started like summoning type tribute bands that are not as good as summoning, but it's still cool. It's still cool that they're, anyway, there's a lot more I could say, but I'm just going to shut up. Favorite, least favorite songs. Kellen, since you're at the bottom of the pile here.
Yeah. So, kind of just to rehash a little of the points that I made. Long Lost to Where the No Pathway Goes. I think that is a killer way to get this record going.
Tim mirrors your sentiment exactly.
Yeah. Man, we're on the same page here.
Yep.
I will jump in and say that I enjoyed Where Hope and Daylight Die sits in this record. I know sometimes maybe caught off guard or a little bit annoyed with sort of the female vocals, but I think it also adds a cool little melodic component to that song as well. So it's a great sort of sits right in the middle of the listening experience here and does a great job sort of breaking up the feel of it. And then track 6 for me, the dynamic momentum and push of that song, man, I when the first time listening through this week, I felt like we were going to get there. And it took me about 4.5 minutes to finally them to throw it in. But when they did, it was a welcome sort of change. I think the closer here. So A Distant Flame Before the Sun, we already kind of talked about the vocal diversity of this track. There's a deeper, coarser sort of vocal performance going on that I think stands out. But just it feels like it goes different places over the almost 10 minutes. Meaning like for a 9-minute closer, the samples, and when it gets quiet, it gets super quiet. When it gets bombastic, it's just over the top.
Like his voice sounds like someone lit an orc on fire. It's so good.
So it was interesting letting this song, because I almost felt like there were several false endings in it.
Yeah.
And it was just them sort of like fully sort of developing this concept, right? So it's a cool closer, and kind of like track number 5, Where Hope and Daylight Die. This one also feels like a very unique one on the record. I think it stands out not just because of its length, but because they're used to samples and sort of how much it oscillates from being like over the top and also super quiet. So those are my favorites. Where I felt this record struggles, I felt like after Long Lost, when we get to The Glory Disappears and Like Some Snow, I just kind of feel like the record starts to level off a little bit for me. And it's not bad. It just like stays in a vibe. And the same thing on The Shadow Lies, Frozen Snow on the Hills. Like, I'm not that song. The Loud Music of the Sky. Those songs for me just kind of start to like it's just they sort of do the circular symphonic thing. And it's not a bad, like they're the, I guess, more predictable songs on the record. But I just felt like that's when I would sort of recede in terms of my attention. And they'd have to call it back, to the forefront later on. But
sure,
I guess it's they're bad by any means. They're just the ones that kind of feel like they're playing a role within the record instead of being sort of singular standout moments.
Right on. Jim.
Oh yeah, man. Long Lost to Where No Pathway Goes is absolutely one of my favorites. It's kind of a tie between that one and Like Some Snow White Marble Eyes. But man, I just love the way those like really calming and despondent keys come in, man. Just it's like it gets me ready for like the rest of the record. I know that there's Rune or Ron behind it, however you pronounce it, which is cool. You know, it's okay. You know, I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, a little tiny little preamble. But for me, the record really begins with Long Lost, and just the way that those keys come in, and then you know, the repeated refrain of the guitar, you know, just kind of, you know, swirling around this like very simple but like calm, you know, like low tone synth. Like it just does something to me, like emotionally. Like I feel like I'm entering in, you know, into Mordor. You know, all the odds are against me. You know, I've got one dude who's my friend. He's a little weird, but you know, whatever. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, just the dreariness of that song is awesome, and from there it just kind of like builds and builds and builds until you get, you know, you end up at the last song where it's triumphant. But yeah, I absolutely love that you know, riff that follows the percussiveness of the chorus, and like some Snow White Marble Eyes. It's heavy, it's awesome, it's headbanging, it's great, but still pure summoning. Like it's just a super great balance for me between, you know, the metal and the atmosphere. You know, I do like Where Hope and Daylight Die with you know, Protector's ex-girlfriend, you know, the Tanya woman's vocal, very cool. And interesting, you know, kind of unexpected take on a summoning song at the time, and but it works, it just does. And I do like The Shadow Lies Frozen on the Hills a lot. You know, that's one I wrote specifically with that circular reference, and I think Kellen just said the same thing. But you know, it kind of ebbs and flows. There's quieter moments on here, then it kind of comes back in. And then the double bass at the end with the tremolo, like that part just rules, man. It's just very powerful. You know, it's, you know, definitely for me one of the heavier, awesome elements of the record. You know, Distant Flame, Before the Sun. You know, it's, first of all, man, let me just say, Summoning has the best song titles, dude.
Yeah.
Their song titles are awesome, man. And you know, this one is absolutely no slouch. But you know, of course, you know, super excited for me to, as I mentioned earlier, hearing Tim Curry say, you know, through dreams I influence mankind, and you know, and just a great thing for them to kind of like add to their, you know, mystery, you know, by pulling in like a fantastic fantasy film from the 80s into there. So me being a child of the 80s was super awesome. But yeah, you know, there is no bad songs on this. It's absolutely not a struggle whatsoever for me to listen to the whole record. And you know, and though, you know, we're looking at a runtime that, you know, is no slouch at, you know, over an hour, it doesn't, it's not a slog for me at all.
Which is sometimes a tough thing that when we prepare for these shows. I mean, when someone picks an album that's that long, I'm thinking, oh no, because I mean, we have to listen.
It's another Ruins record.
Yeah, we have to listen to them. Oh, that one that Logan picked, the green one, I can't remember. Oh, Cult of Luna. That was a long album too, wasn't it?
50 minutes.
Yeah, it was just,
okay, that wasn't too
you
bad.
start getting over 50 and 60, it's just like, oh no, how many times am I going to listen to this album? But yeah, anyway. Sorry, interrupt.
No. It works. The only minor criticism I got of this record, the only thing that kind of bugs me is on The Glory Disappears. Like, man, Thelonious says that over and over again, man. The glory disappears. The glory disappears. Like, I just, and I know that repetition is a part of summoning. That's what it's all about, right? But for some reason, like, I really got tired of that phrase by the end of the song. You know, I wanted him to say something else that's cool. I do like the phrase "the glory disappears." It's a very cool, again, very cool song title, but super minor, nitpicky gripe. But you know, because I didn't want this to be like a gush fest, I had to like call out something.
Right.
But yeah, definitely tracks 2 and 4 are my favorite. Long Lost, To Where No Pathway Goes, and Like Some Snow White Marble Eyes.
All right. Kellen, did you already go?
Yeah.
Okay. Logan. God, I'm confusing myself. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, speaking of Kellen, basically copying off of his paper, exactly. Long Lost, To Where No Pathway Goes is probably my favorite song on the album. It is a tough choice but I just love how that introduces the album. Very still like that's traditional summoning style, but immediately that just guitar melody line is so haunting, and it perfectly leads the track where, you know, the album is going to go, and it's just the start of the journey, and a brilliant one at that. Then, of course, Where Hope and Daylight Die, that might be my other favorite song on the album. That's like, it's a tough choice. And I think mainly it's because of how different it is from the rest of the album. And it's not just different because of the female vocals, but the drum and the guitar work feels a bit amped up. Like I already commented on like the drum machine tom sound. It just feels like it's kind of moving at a faster pace and is almost like kind of rolling the song along, and the guitars kind of lock in. And I think, Marty, you mentioned earlier in the stream that it kind of has a metal crescendo towards the end. I just like the way that song builds, and the whole while they stick with the girl singing. And, you know, I was thinking, oh man, they might change it back to Protector or something to, you know, close it out, but they don't. And honestly, it pays off that they just let her carry out the track, you know, because a little part of me was like, man, I wouldn't mind some scream vocals in here, some black metal like snarls, but I think it is better that it's just her, and this song is like a singular, unique moment in the album. Yep. And it's a bit like, you know, seeing Galadriel on your journey through Middle Earth or something like that, and the chanting beauty before you run into more orcs or something. Rotting Horse on the Deadly Ground. That's the orcs right there. That's a vicious song. So good. Just the vocal performance by Selenius, as I said, is my favorite on the album, and how it builds up. To me, this is the most aggressive track on the album. And then the closer. I mean, Kelly, you summed it up perfectly. I like how it ties into the intro. That is Rune. Like it, like at 6 minutes into the track, it becomes Rune, and then that's when the movie clips play over top. And it's a good way to close out the album, and it kind of ties into what has been said about the circular nature of Summoning's music. So the only other song I want to highlight that is favorite of mine is The Glory Disappears, which I enjoy that one. I think I enjoy Selenius's vocal touch a lot, so I basically just highlighted all of the tracks where he was lead vocals on, and this is no different. I like how the chorus of it sounds hopeful and kind of uplifting, but he's still like viciously doing his orc shrieks over top. It's just a nice dynamic touch. The only one that I think is a missed opportunity is like some Snow White Marble Eyes. That one, as I said, there's that one element that just bugs me, and it could be my favorite song on the album, but something there,
I don't know.
Like that guitar.
Charles did something else besides Spotify, man, because I don't recall what you're talking about.
I'll have to pull it up on YouTube. Yeah, it's just like during the verse, it's just this constant buzzing sound that won't go away. And I know it's playing a melody of some kind. It's just it feels compressed, you know. And it probably is Spotify. It probably is Spotify. So I don't know. The jury's out on that one, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, for me, yeah, I really do like the fact that Rune starts off the album. It kind of introduces the fact that there's one thing about this record, even though there's a lot of highs and lows as far as the dynamics goes, it rhymed. There's an undeniable sense of melancholy throughout all these tracks. I don't know if it's the sounds they chose in the synth tones or the key they're playing in. I don't know. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's one thing. It's a very mellow album, if that makes any sense. I don't know, but the first intro there is really kind of sums it up. And then of course Long Lost to Where No Pathway Goes, I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring too, is one of the favorites for me. I mean, that main riff has kind of a prog feel to it with that, what is it, arpeggiated series of notes. I don't know if it's like a picked out arpeggio or whatever the hell they're doing, but it's very proggy, and kind of different for Summoning at this point. You know, it's kind of a different musical element they're bringing in. But man, when that chorus hits with that bombastic and triumphant hit of synth layers, it's just like, okay, this is what I'm in for on this trip. And again, the impact is very world building for sure. Yeah, The Glory Disappears is another good song. Very kind of dreamlike start to the song, kind of mystical sounding. And then this is the first point where you're really getting the full brunt of Selenius's acidic vocals. It kind of awakens you from the trance a bit. Yeah, then I go on in my notes to say how inspiring his voice is, and one of the best black metal vocalists out there, sinister, evil. And it does fit in very perfectly with Summoning Cinematic Scope. Yeah, like some Snow White Marble Eyes. This, I think I get where Kellen is going with saying that there's some tracks in the album that kind of settle on a lane. Yeah, it's still circular, still has that feel, but they're not really, they're kind of settling on a vibe. And this song in particular, it feels like you have to be kind of patient in it. Kind of feels like you're on a meandering but picturesque journey. A lot of good mental imagery throughout the song. It kind of accompanies the applauding melodicism. I dig it. Yeah, Where Hope and Daylight Die. This is one we talked about, the opera singer on it. And I remember when I first got the album, I'm like, oh man, this is a tough song to navigate. Cause I grew up, my grandfather was big into opera, and I just never could get my head wrapped around opera. I do like classical music, which I guess opera has a lot of connection to, other than, the voice, but that it took a lot to navigate. But this week and listening to it again after not hearing this album in a minute, it really, it adds a bit of class and a refined expansion of their sound. I think she doesn't seem out of place. Very cultured. It's like a night at the opera. Level carefully. Yeah. Carefully curated sophistication. I write better than I talk. That just happens. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the metal is kind of the exclamation point in the song. What is it? Should I wait for you? And then the gin, 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 the crunch comes in, and then it kind of veers off into this slightly metal period that does crescendo towards the end of the song. It makes this track, it kind of snaps you out of the trance that they've been lulling you into, and more experimental and adventurous track on the album for me. Of course, Rotting Horse on the Deadly Ground. I tried looking to see if that meant something, but no, it's just poetic, taking poetic license, I guess. Cool lyrics to the song though. Strangely poetic title of this track. Oh yeah, this is the one with the starts out. It's got that synth horn sound at the beginning, very dungeon synthy. I kind of dig that. Selenius back in the vocals. We've already talked about it. It's completely a great song. But for me, my all-time favorite track on here is The Distant Flame Before the Sun. This is the absolute climax of the album. As far as I'm concerned, the chorus on here is the most triumphant, bombastic, feral, because of Selenius's voice. It's weird because the track kind of starts off kind of plodding, kind of a march that I sit beside the fire and think, and he uses that opening line on each verse. So it kind of lulls you into like this plot, and then that march, that militaristic march fades away, and it lulls you into this beautiful little synth melody. And then all of a sudden it all comes in, everything comes in, and Selenius's voice. It's like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they crack open the Ark and all the Nazis' faces like turn to blood. That's what I feel like when he starts singing. I'm like, yes, so good. And they know how good that chorus is, because towards the end of the song, they repeat it twice in a row, which I question, but I get it because it's such a good chorus. They didn't have to do that, but they did. My one minor complaint about it, but it isn't even a complaint, because by the time that they're in it again, I'm like, yeah, okay, keep doing it for the whole song. I love it so much. But again, it's a perfect closing track, which we'll get into again on Friday. And I do love them recalling the beginning of the album on that Rune track and adding all the samples. It just ends on a somber note. But God, the chorus on that song is so good. I just can't get over it. Yeah, let's talk about the final thoughts. Judgment. Pass your judgment, Logan. Nerd. Nerds.
So I felt like Summoning was never my band because I'm not a nerd, I guess.
Because you're not a nerd.
Yeah. But they've been one that I've wanted to like more. I mean, I feel like I should like them more. I mean, atmospheric black metal is kind of my favorite style of black metal. When I do enjoy black metal fully, it is typically an atmospheric album. And I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. You know, I love the books and of course the movies, and the music should be right up my alley as well. But like for whatever reason, the albums that I own, I don't take off the shelf that often. But I think Stronghold is the strongest iteration of this Summoning sound that I've heard. I was impressed with the variety and the focus on, I don't know, more prevalent guitar work. The songwriting feels a bit more dynamic. Really, the length of the album to me is the most telling, and my view of it, because other Summoning albums, it feels like they are an hour long or an hour and 10 minutes long. This kind of settles in it like it feels like it could be 45 minutes to 50 minutes. It does not feel like of that length, and I think it's just because it flows very well, and there's enough variety between their typical sound and something a bit more guitar driven, and even like the choruses being as, you know, melodic and layered as they are. But it definitely feels like a realization of the Summoning sound. So I would say if someone is on the edge with this band, yeah, this is the album you should probably start with, you know. And honestly, I wish I started with this album. Like maybe it would have been better for me to go Stronghold and then go back versus the other way around. So
May have been a little more sympathetic to the more stripped back sound. Yeah.
But like Minas Morgul does get a lot of praise, if not to me the most praise from the Summoning discography, which is why, you know, I thought I hit pay dirt when I found that one. But no, this has been my favorite Summoning that I've heard so far. I still need to hear Let Mortal Heroes Sing Your Fame.
Great album.
Yep, I heard good stuff. And but yeah, this is a strong album that I will definitely try to pick up at some point. And 8.5 out of 10 for me.
Right on. Kellen.
Yeah, for a band that I guess I have a lot of similar notes to that Logan would have. For a band that I kind of had made my peace with, this was a fun little discovery.
Cool.
To go back and kind of get reinvested in them. I guess the bordering records, this is kind of the sweet spot, right? So I can the following record or the one preceding it probably finds them at their artistic peak, according to people in the chat here. So yeah, I don't know. Like I still kind of feel like as much as this record kind of flirted with being a metal one, I probably enjoyed it for just, you know, to your point. I put this on this week and I didn't get it's over an hour long kind of vibe out of it.
Yeah.
I was entertained with enough of it, and I also kind of sank into it and sort of enveloped in the experience over the course of the hour in a way that did not feel by any means a task. Right. Sometimes I think you listen to, like, I love, you know, some Funeral Doom records, and just overall there are some great black metal records that eclipse an hour. And that's kind of like a concept. For some bands, it's an expectation. For a band that I kind of had written off and being like, it's not for me to sit down and enjoy over an hour this week. To their credit, this absolutely kind of won me over. So I'll pick this up for sure. And then probably in the sort of bookend records that go along with it, I'll be curious to explore those as well.
Sniffing around. Yep.
Yeah.
Right on. Jim.
Yeah, Logan, you're definitely right. I think if you haven't heard Summoning, this is a great album to start with. Yeah, you know, I know people talk about Minas Morgul and Let Mortal Heroes Sing Your Flame. Those are great records. They really, I like all Summoning's releases. I do, but I think this is their strongest, man. I think everything is just kind of maximized here. You know, on top of the atmosphere, you got great riffing, great vocals, great lyrics. I think, you know, I'll argue with anyone. I'm sorry, this is to me their best album. But you know, if you're new, this is definitely the one to start with. I personally think that you know, all summoning records are worth having. But absolutely, you know, this is a must buy for me. Yeah, and I already own it, but if I didn't, I would buy it. But yeah, the only there's really not much more to say. I mean, that I haven't said already. You know, it's a strong album. It's called Stronghold, and you should own it. Period.
Right on. Yeah, I'm with Jim. Lug Burrs you could probably live without. It's okay. It's kind of a standard black metal album for the time. Nothing super special. I think Abigor is better when you start comparing apples to apples there. But you know, the band changed into something far more special on the follow-up album, Minas Morgul, and they continue to perfect it. And in their catalog, they do perfect it, and they do kind of ride on that coattail for a while until you get to Old Morning's Dawn. There's like I haven't listened to it in a hot minute, but I remember being kind of taken aback. There's more of at times like an Enya vibe to it, or like a world music type of thing at times. It's like, it felt like they were kind of shitting my Wheaties a little bit, but I ended up loving the record. They made it their own. And it wasn't for the whole album. Anyway, Stronghold, I think this is, I would have to agree, my favorite summoning album. The one after it's really good. Oathbound is really good as well, other than the production's a little wonky. But production here and there, it doesn't matter. But this album, I think, is, again, if you're going to start off with summoning, this is the one to start with for sure. Agreed wholeheartedly. And that leads us to, well, first of all, thank you guys when I picked it, I didn't, I guess, really realize how long of the record it was. It just, summoning has been on my list since we started doing this, and glad to finally get it. I can scratch it off and move on, but thanks for humoring me. And we know now through talk in the private chat area whose turn it is. It's Jim's turn for the week. What are you picking?
All right, man. I think it's, you know, time to shake ourselves out of the calming realms of the Shire and get thrashy, baby. Come on now.
Awesome.
It's time for some reveal.
I'm surprised you picked that one. I'm surprised you picked that one.
Well, I love this one and Twisted into Form. But yeah, I figure we'll do this one first. I'll get to Twisted into Form later.
All right. Forbidden Evil, their debut album, Bay Area Thrashers. We will be here for that next week for sure. And Friday, some show notes. There's a review coming up. Logan sent it last week. I've been too busy to sit down, and I'm going to review it. I'm going to edit it and get it up soon. Then Logan will be joining myself and Alan and Bill from the Ninth Circle, or the Ninth. Is that the name of this show?
Yeah, that's right.
The Ninth Circle. We're going to be talking about our favorite closing tracks to an album. So we're going to pick some, we say start strong, end strong. Well, we're going to focus on ending strong this time. And that'll be a fun conversation. We've never really done a song based show before. So something a little bit different. Logan, what have you got coming up on Metal and Beer Snob, if anything?
I mean, you kind of highlighted what's going on the next week. Stick around, Metallurgy. I'll be around here.
Right on.
Still, I didn't get a chance to do that stream on Jeff's channel, but it will be coming next week. I think on Thursday, talking about Temple of the Dog, Mad Seasons Above, and Screaming Trees, Sweet Oblivion. So, for grunge fans, check it out next Thursday night on Gas Masks and Hand Grenades.
Awesome. Kellen, what you got going on?
So nothing on my channel. It is a long. not posted a review over here for a while.
I haven't either. It's been since gruesome for me.
So I was send out some notes today, an email for the crew, and I've got one set aside. So hopefully this weekend you'll have till the 29th is when it's released. So we got some time. You can get Logan's review up here soon.
Yep.
And then I'll jump in. I'll be doing a review for the new prescription record. So
cool.
Desolate Divine. So hopefully this weekend I get that ready for you.
Awesome. Jim, any announcement yet?
Yeah. Yes, we are working with a band from New Orleans right now. That's still in the early stages. We have a lot of work to do to get the release out. But they are on Bandcamp already with their release date. But we're going to do the cassette version of it. I will talk to them. I'm not sure if we should announce it yet or not, but we are in the stages. We are in the process. So it's happening. So within the next few months, we'll have that out. But yeah, we're pretty excited. I think everybody's going to like this stuff. It definitely kind of reminds me of some Bindroom stuff a little bit, man. It's
right on. Cool.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, more to come.
Sweet. Well, I guess that's it, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday night, and hope you all had a good week, and we'll see you on Friday. Until then, take care. Cheers.